This is part 3 of this series asking, is Australia the least sustainable country in the world? If you missed part 1 or part 2, then you can find those by clicking on the links here or in the description. Part 1 provides an introduction to the data on Australia's carbon emissions compared to other nations over time, and part 2 explores Australia's electricity market. This video will combine that information and find out what the Australian government is doing now to address these issues and whether Australia is the least sustainable country in the world. The commitments made by the Australian government were communicated in the Low Emissions Technology Statement first in 2020 and updated in 2021, with public spending being directed to these areas and 6 stretch goals listed as key priorities. They focused on reducing costs of clean technologies. Government spending was allocated to specific funds for ongoing investment, and some of this has already been allocated to specific projects, as can be seen on this map. They're separated by the administering departments of the Australian Renewable Energy Association, the Clean Energy Finance Corporation, and the Clean Energy Regulator that administers the Australian Carbon Credit Units, or ACCUs as they're commonly referred to. This raw data is also available for download and further analysis. So this blue column represents the government spending and the grey columns the total investment spending towards the technology area. The investment just from the Australian Renewable Energy Agency is summarised here, with the majority clearly going to solar photovoltaics. Increasing the supply of renewables will also require significant upgrades to the electricity network, and this has been developed by the Australian Energy Market Operator with a 30-year plan which is summarised here. Carbon capture and storage is one of the more controversial technologies, and it's not been included in this information. Despite the wide controversy in the media, this is in fact one of the areas that has received the least amount of funding to date, below that of hydrogen for government funding and with a total investment closer to that of battery storage. This difference in sources of funding is common throughout the world, as shown by this data from the International Renewable Energy Agency. So how does the Australian government think they're doing? The same as any technology, carbon capture cannot be used as a singular solution to climate change issues, and judging from the current investment data, it appears the Australian government has recognised this through their spending up to this point. Australia has made some achievements, including large integration of home solar panel installations, which has been supported by government funding incentives. The government highlight that Australia is performing better than other nations when it comes to reducing overall emissions, but this data has been somewhat cherry-picked. Comparing the same years instead of different years, it looks like this. And if you extend that to 1990 as the base year, it looks more like this. However, the most revealing adjustment comes if you don't include carbon emission from the land use change. Then this graph tells a very different story. Instead of Australia's emissions reducing by 22%, they have in fact increased by 24%, which is very poor compared to other nations. This sees Australia move from 29th of all countries listed in the United Nations Annex 1 to 3rd last. So at least we've stopped cutting down all our forests at an alarming rate, but reductions from increased integration of renewables is clearly offset by the increase in other sectors. If we focus on the electricity sector again, we can see there has been an overall reduction in the sector since 2009. So what's driving these changes now? This has largely been accomplished through the renewable energy target, which was met 1 year ahead of schedule in 2019. However, this was certainly assisted by the government adjusting the target in 2015 from 41,000 gigawatt hours down to 33,000 gigawatt hours of electricity produced from renewables. But at the end of May this year, the Australian people voted in a new leader and a new party, and they are staying committed to their election promise of boosting the share of renewables in the national grid to 82%. This would be a significant increase from the current 30% and would help to increase the overall emissions reduction target to 43% by 2030. This is an increase of 15% from the previous target of 26 to 28% and would see Australia's greenhouse gas emissions reduced to around 260 megatons of CO2 equivalent. This would place Australia in line with the European Union's commitments under the Paris Climate Agreement. So what's next? The next question is this going to be enough? We'll have to delve into that more deeply in another video, but looking at the global commitments prior to the last update before the COP26, it seems there's a long way to go. Although the new commitments after COP26 should have a significant impact, the Climate Targets Panel suggests Australia's target should be a 50% reduction of emissions by 2030, with a net zero commitment by 2045 instead of 2050. So what do you think? Do you think Australia is doing enough, or should we be doing more to contribute? Leave your thoughts in the comments, and if you would like to see more of these data-driven deep dives, then the best way to support the channel is through the Patreon link in the description. Click the subscribe button and the bell icon to be alerted when new content is released, and if you enjoyed this clip or learned something new, then please like and share the video, and I'll see you for the next one.